Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette. As we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest from a different martial arts style, different background, and we're going to learn about their journey through the world of martial arts. My guest today, for about 15 years, he was a political and public affairs consultant, spent time on the United States Senate staff, and worked as a state executive director for 2 presidential campaigns. Had multi-state corporations and national organizations in telecommunications and transportation as clients. During this time, he appeared on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, national broadcast, and local affiliates, and even Nickelodeon. He provided political perspective for King 5 Television in Seattle. He's attended many diverse spiritual experiences, from spending several years as a Franciscan friar to a 1.5-year tutelage with Lakota medicine woman, times with a Shinto group, and mystics and healers of different modalities. He's a proud graduate of Eastern Washington University and still holds season tickets to the Eagles football games. But of course, we're probably not going to talk about any of that. We're going to talk about martial arts. So please welcome to my guest today, Mr. Kris Wilder. How you doing, sir?
Brian, thank you. I like hearing all of my diverse accomplishments read in your melodious tones.
Hey, like I mentioned before, I do voiceover work, so so sometimes kick it to that level just a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely an impressive resume. A lot of political stuff, which we never get into on this show, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's fine.
That would be bad if we brought up politics here. So
yeah.
But hey, it's all good. But like I do with most of my guests, what we like to start with is we go back to the beginning. What was that first spark? What was that first interest in martial arts? What made you seek it out? Was it a TV show? Was it a movie? Was it a friend, comic book? As many different answers I heard from many guests. Just kind of what led to that first interest?
Oh, you hit it right there, Brian. It was a TV show. It was Johnny Quest and it was Race Bannon.
Really?
And yeah. Johnny Quest is an interesting show. It's the only animated show to appear on all 3 of the big stations, ABC, NBC, CBS. And when you turn that on as a kid and you're looking at Race Bannon, who is swinging from a rope and shooting a Tommy gun and throwing people with his judo throws, and he's wearing slacks, you're like, yeah, I want to do that. Mom, that. And that's really how it began, was that very popular television show that was a cartoon that was good enough to make it on all 3 of the big stations.
Wow. So then did you right away go and seek out a local school, or what led to your first school, your first instructor?
Yeah, there was no local school. It was pretty rough. To get to class was on Sunday afternoons, and let me tell it this. Okay, well, what happened is we would come back from church, and then I would get on my motorcycle and ride down the driveway, across the road, down through the 2 different orchards, and get to my place, my friend's Jeff's house. And Jeff and Rich and I would have Jeff's older brother, Blaine, drive us to the town where the class was. And that was just about a 60-mile trip. So it's about 120 round trip.
Wow.
And we paid for gas, and we had to buy a pineapple milkshake for Blaine because he could drive. It had to stop at the Dairy Queen and get that. And, that was when it really became serious. Prior to that, my mom used to make the drive. and we would go down there. Now that was the way it was, and I had to earn extra money around the ranch to with extra chores to make the money to pay for the lessons. And then, you trained on your own during the week, and you went down there and spent about 2.5 hours training in either the Union Hall or the Armory, depending on what was going on. And that's the way that it went. And that was Taekwondo.
Okay.
And I was pretty fortunate to have some good people that had their hearts in the right place as teachers. So yeah, that was my experience. That's where that began. And then, you get out, you go to university, you start getting some more diverse experience, and you go from there.
Do you remember which style of Taekwondo that was? Which organization?
Oh, it was the old World Taekwondo Federation. This
Okay.
was back in the 70s.
So it was definitely more traditional then.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you looked at some, we did the Poomsae, and if you looked at some of those things, you'd say, that looks a little bit like Shotokan.
So was that the Palgay forms you guys were doing?
No,
Do you remember?
no,
Okay.
no, no. We were doing. It wasn't the ITF forms. It was the Poomsae forms,
Okay.
and so it wasn't like Taeguk and Chunji. It wasn't the Taeguk. Was it the Palgay? Yeah, it was the Palgay forms. Yeah, that's what
Palgay
it was.
Ichang, Palgay Samchang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are the
Yeah,
same ones my current school still does. Actually,
I liked them.
it's rare to find schools that still teach the Palgay. I'm impressed.
Well, that was back when the Earth was cooling. So who knows
True.
what's going on now.
So what was it about that first instructor that made you want to keep coming back?
Well, it was actually a cadre of 3.
Okay.
And they were nice. I was just a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I was like in the 7th or 8th grade, something like that, maybe 6th, something in there. Time, I'm not a great measurement of time.
Right.
I say to my friends, hey, you remember that thing we did the other day? And they're like, that was 11 years ago. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, in my world, in this bucket of a head, time doesn't really fit too well. But they were helpful. They were kind. Of course, there were expectations as any school would have, but they were just. It's almost like they were my troop leader in Boy Scouts.
Oh, okay.
They sort of had a mentoring about. There was a little more latitude that was allowed. There were still rules, and things were to be, but there was an understanding that you're learning something here, son. You're learning something here. So hey, pay attention. Oh, okay. No, over here. Oh, okay. So that's how I remember them, as being more allowing than some of the certainly than what their teachers were. Their teachers were hardcore guys that had some either time in Korea or were associated with the ROC, as those times would provide.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they were a little more accommodating to young American kids. So that would be the cliff note, I think, on it.
Okay. And do you remember what belt you got to with that organization?
Oh, I got to my 2nd degree.
Oh, so you're with them quite a while then.
Yeah. The instructors changed,
Mm-hmm.
and they. I'll tell you this story. This is right out of some script writer's fevered dream, but the dojang had collapsed. I think it was instructors had to move, and whatever the story was, I'm not sure. And one of the guys was living in the adjacent town, who had been a superior to my instructors, and I went and knocked on his door, and he said, "Hey, look, I got a wife, I got a new baby. I'm starting to I'm building my own individual business. I don't have time for you." And I kept coming back, and finally he said, I checked with my wife. She says that it'd be okay, and I would like to do it. So be in my rec room Tuesdays and Thursdays. We start at 7:30.
Nice.
Okay. And so he took me to my second degree under that private instruction. And that's, it's corny, it's hokey. Like I said, it sounds like it came right out of some guy's computer who was writing the next great American screenplay, but that's what happened.
So he didn't have you like waxing his car, painting his fence or anything?
No, no, I didn't have to do any of those kinds of things. And we still remain friends today. We have other things that have occurred in our lives that are personal and tragic.
Okay.
And they have mirrored each other. And when we do speak, it is as if no time had passed.
So then I imagine, since it was majority of your stuff was private lessons, you probably didn't get a lot of opportunity to get into teaching at that point in your martial arts journey.
I opened my first dojang in 81,
okay.
I think it was. And I was Edon at the time.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, go ahead, go do it. Go sick. And so I did. And I had, I don't know, 10, 12 students, I think. And and it was a good time. My employer at the time, I said, hey, this part of your shop, you're not using it for anything. He's like, nope. I'm like, can I put a Taekwondo school in there? And he went, yep.
Nice.
That's what I did.
That's cool.
And so I built a floor in there using 2x4s and plywood, and built a kind of a cantilevered supported floor, and hung a heavy bag from one of the support beams, and people would come and we would train.
That's kind of cool, actually. So do you think I'm just curious that you're like your first time teaching, because I know normally, like with me, I started helping teach in group classes when I was probably a green or blue belt. I mean, with a lot of private lessons, you probably didn't get a lot of that. So how was that? Think about your first teaching experience, like your first class you got to teach. What was that like? A little overwhelming, or?
No, I was supremely confident in my skills as a teacher. And that confidence was ill-placed. But with that supreme confidence, I wouldn't call it arrogance, but I was pretty sure that I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I wasn't. And I think that anybody that if you went to a school teacher and maybe they've had 15 years of teaching, you'll ask them, you say, well, were you prepared for your first day? And the answer is going to be, oh, I thought I was, but I wasn't. You ask any staff sergeant, were you prepared to lead? No, I wasn't, but I was sure I was. And everybody, I think, discovers the difference between theory and practice,
Exactly.
And that's what happens. And so, like I said, I was supremely confident that I knew what I was doing, and I knew how to teach, and I knew how to reach people. And I wasn't. And when I began to realize that, because I got metaphorically punched in the face a couple times, then it was like, okay, well, that's got to change. And I was flexible enough to make the adaptations, which flexibility and me are not two words that go together, because I'm fairly confident in a position that I've taken, and as a natural, as a natural way that I function in the world. So if you were to Myers-Briggs me, you would find me to be an ESTJ, which sort of means that, I like the trains to run on time, and that will happen. And that attitude has since changed in my life, and I've become more flexible because I saw value in that. But there was a time that I wasn't very flexible, and I was pretty sure about how things needed to be, and that's the way it was. Not an attractive look, I don't think, but nonetheless, that's what I did, and you learn from it and you move on.
Nice. Now, in your on your website, I'm reading here, you do have black belts in multiple styles. So when did the cross training start? When did you start training in another school while you were teaching? Did you start another style, or was you training at the same time? How did you decide to branch out into other martial arts?
That was both a conscious and decision and sort of catch as catch can. I took Shotokan because my like I said, the Taekwondo dojo had collapsed. Well, I found out that one of the local police officers was a black belt in Shotokan. It's like, hey, would you? He's like, yeah, show up in my backyard. So we did that for a while until
Nice.
he was transferred or left or whatever it was. You know, I was living in Spokane at one time, and I trained in Ed Parker's American Kempo, and had a chance to meet and talk with him on several occasions.
Very cool.
Was a really very cool dude. Learned a lot from him on just how to handle oneself. You know, just I could go on for hours about that. Got into Goju-Ryu because I couldn't find a Taekwondo school at my university. And that doesn't mean it didn't exist. I just didn't know where to find it, because this was before the age of computers in this, you know, as we know them today. So it was like you got to find a flyer taped up on a corkboard somewhere. And if somebody didn't do that, you didn't know where it was. Guy throws a kid, hey, what are you doing? I'm doing this Goju-Ryu. I'll go do that, you know, and stuck with that. And then one day I was at the Cherry Blossom Festival. I had decided probably 18 months to 2 years prior to going to the Cherry Blossom Festival in Seattle, which is a major Japanese event that takes place at the Seattle Center where the Space Needle is. I had decided that the throws that I was being taught were just not good. It couldn't make them work. So I thought, well, you know, these guys in judo, they seem to know what they're doing. And so I'm at the Cherry Blossom Festival, and I'm just sitting there watching this demonstration. And I turned to my wife and said, hey, man, these guys are really good. And some guy leans forward and gives me a card, Seattle Judo Dojo.
Nice.
Okay. So I go down there with intent to go learn to, you know, I don't know, 5-6 months, kind of get some idea about what's going on here. And, you know, I wind up staying for 15 years. And, you know, and the Seattle Judo Dojo is the oldest judo dojo in the United States.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was just a phenomenal place. I loved being there. I loved judo, but, you know, a detached retina kind of makes you slow down. It's like the doctor's going, yeah, you're going blind in that eye. Why? Detach retina. Oh, okay. What do you do? Judo. Yeah. Well, guess what? You know, really? Yeah. You know, we're going to fix this, and I don't want to see you again. Like, okay. So, you know, that has gone by the wayside, but that's a long answer to a short question. So the answer is some things were sought, and some things I fell into, but it didn't make any difference whether I fell into them or whether I sought them. I went after them with the same gusto.
Okay.
So
yeah. It says here, Goju-Ryu, your sixth dance. Obviously, that's the one you've gone the furthest in as far as rank. Mm-hmm. What was it about that style? What did you enjoy about it? What made you stick with that one?
Well, it fits my body better. I'm not let's put it this way. I'm a wrestler, lineman kind of body type. You know, I played football. I played on the line. I wrestled. You know, I'm not a gymnast sort of body. So the Okinawan system fit my body demeanor, for lack of a better phrase. I don't know that really conveys it, and I did like what I was doing in the Taekwondo because I liked it. Mm-hmm. But I could have walked into Goju-Ryu. I could have probably walked into Shorin-Ryu or Ishin-Ryu or Tomorite. I could have walked into any of those, or Weiichi-Ryu, and been fine. I probably would have, you know, stayed with that because it sort of resonates with me. It's almost like a drink. Some people take their coffee black, and other people go to the other end of the spectrum, lots of cream and sugar. And that's their palate. That's how they like the taste. You know, some people like the darker chocolates, other people like the milk chocolates. And you can't really argue with them about it because it's what they like.
So, when I look at Goju-Ryu and Judo, those two go together really well.
Okay.
Taekwondo and Judo don't go together so well. You gotta work pretty hard to build the bridge. It isn't that it can't be done. It just is a different way of solving the problem of violence. And so, a little higher stance, a little more hands, a little less feet, a little lower kicking. Yeah, that suited my demeanor. So I went from, one form of chocolate to the other form of chocolate, or one way of drinking your coffee to another way of drinking your coffee. I think that when it comes to these things, martial arts being one of them, boy, and I hope people are going to listen to this, because I think this is so important. Your only allegiance is to your own training. It's not to a system. It's not to a style. It's not to an instructor. If you build yourself in a style with a system and an instructor that you like and you enjoy, you're doing it correctly. If you're doing it from the top down, I put in so much time. I've got the sunken cost fallacy. I don't want to leave. I don't want to lose. What? You're going to lose all that training? You're going to lose all that? No, you don't lose anything. You just move to a different place. The idea that you're being beholden to a group or an organization because you made a commitment, and you start rationalizing it, that's not a successful way to do it. Do it from the other way. Build it from the ground up, so that what you're doing is you're saying, I want to be here. I want to support this instructor. I want to support this school. I find value in this. They're teaching this, that the world is better. The students are improving. Everybody is becoming better. Their families are becoming better. Their community, because of this organization, this instructor, this group of board of directors. That's the way to do it. Think of it this way. Every bad law in America, well, in the world, but I'll talk about America, every bad law is from the top down and can't be enforced. Every good law organically grows up from the people saying, this works for us, and then the government codifies it and says, yeah, we agree that school zones should be 20 miles an hour, because that makes yes, we all agree 20 miles an hour is a good, safe speed to be going in a school zone. And that's what we're going to do. And if you don't do it, the government has a right, because the people say so, to fine you for that, to make you remember that you need to do this, because it's about kids being safe, because kids are a young school of mush. They don't pay attention. They'll run out into the street. The other way around is to say, you need to do this, and if you don't do it, we will fine you. And, it's like, well, you better make sure that you got the ability to enforce it. And if you don't have the ability to enforce it and you made the law, you just became moot, because now all the rest of the laws don't work. It's a bad way to go.
Right.
So when you're approaching your martial arts, look at it that way, from the ground up, not from the top down. What am I getting? How am I going? Am I getting stronger? Am I getting better? Is it meeting my needs? Is it reaching me in a way that is making my life better, increasing the quality of my life, by extension, my family, by extension, my community? If you follow those rules, you'll be fine. If you go the other way, you're going to have a sour taste in your mouth, and you're going to be like all the other people that we've met that go, I used to, but yeah.
Yes, I like that. So then, do you primarily just teach Goju-Ryu at your school then, or do you still blend in some of the other stuff?
No. Well, in Goju-Ryu, we have, I would say, 7 of the classic judo throws. So we do that. We learn how to fall, we learn how to pad out, we learn how to throw, we learn how to manipulate, somebody, to get them down on the ground. 7 throws. The Ippon Seonagi, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Every once in a while, I'll whip out a little Taekwondo for some fun, kind of shake it up. It's like, hey, guess what? Today, we're not just getting a cheese pizza. We're getting an extra cheese pizza. Check this out. We're going to do this, and have fun with it. Now, they're never held to, you're never going to be responsible for this. I'm never going to ask you to do this. in an examination or anything. This is for fun. It's for exposure. It's you should know these things. Be big, be bold, get out there, do some new things. Here's a kooky day, and we're going to learn something different. But at its core, I teach Goju-Ryu. That's it. And at any time, if another art can support that, then that happens, as I know it to be. Now, I spent a lot of time in Arnis, and do I teach Arnis? Sometimes we'll whip out the sticks and kind of play around because it's a little bit of fun, and you should know those things. I go back to what Miyamoto Musashi said, and he said that, and I'm going to paraphrase this. He said, you don't have to master every style. You just have to be familiar with it so you know what you're facing.
Nice.
So, and that's a good way to do it. It's like, I don't need to go out and collect a whole bunch. No, I went and spent, what did I do with Arnis? I don't know, a year and a half, maybe. You can learn some things. And if you've got some foundational work and some other arts, you can sort of append on and it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I see where we're going. Contextually, it makes sense. All right. Yeah, I see what's happening. Oh, this is the way we want to approach it. Okay, got it. And you can go along and move that way. So, lots of things to be learned, but not necessarily to inject them with the intent of appending them on to change the core art, but simply to be able to say, here's a tangential place, here's a tether that goes out to this art. You might want to know something about that. You might want to know. My students, they're like, hey, this guy's coming in, he's doing a seminar. Are you going to go? And it's like, yeah, actually, I'm not going to go because it doesn't fit with what I'm doing. But you should go and come back with something to share with the class. Okay, so go and learn and get a lot of stuff, but keep your eyes sharp because I want you to come back with something because you're going to teach it. So be ready.
Very cool. I like that. Yeah, I've had a few instructors over the years who have done that also. And we have students that come in, oh, I went to a judo seminar over the weekend. Good. You're going to teach us some judo next week. So that's great.
Yeah.
So think back to that first school you opened then, in the 80s. How do you think your teaching style has changed over the years?
Much more flexible, more bottom up than top down. At the
when I talked about flexibility earlier, I am more flexible and more tolerant. I'm more interested now in meeting the people where they are instead of making them comply. Now that sounds a little soft. If you listen to the words, it's like, oh, this guy's over here giving, butterfly hugs and mussing people's hair, and it's okay, try again. I focus more on the positive than I did in the past. No, don't do it this way, do it that way. I'm much more about, that was good, let's be great. Let's, hey, I see you've been working on that. In the old days, it would have been, hey, I see you've been working on that. Let me show you what you need to do to make it better. Now it's, hey, you've been working on that at home. That's great. Would you keep doing that? Because you're getting better. Different attitude. And I don't feel compelled to interject instruction at every moment. Sometimes it's okay now to just let things go and not have to get out there and tweak stuff. And it's like, hey, let me show you something, that's really good, but here's what you need to do now. No, the more you aid people in having success, the more they're going to want to engage in the journey, stay longer, get results, share it with others. That's far more important than whether or not, your thumb was turned at 30 degrees or 65.
Right.
We'll get to that 65 down the road. That'll come along. But right now, my teaching is far more positive, almost to the point of silliness. That was great. That was fantastic. I mean, woo, that was awesome. And I call people out for doing great stuff. Hey, everybody stop for a second. Hey, Sabrina, come up here. Hey, I want you guys to see what Sabrina's doing right here. This is very good. Sabrina, show them how you're kicking. Where are you putting your knee? Go ahead, talk it through. Use your words and talk it through. Just sort of explain. Okay, great. Let's go. See that, guys? That's what I want you to do. Hey, everybody, try it now. Sabrina, do it again. Everybody copy Sabrina. Fantastic. Hey, Sabrina, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Quick bow. Back to the spot. Okay, everybody. Now, Let's be like Sabrina, you know? Well, you know what? Sabrina is shy, almost spooky shy. So and I'm just making this up, of
Right.
course, spooky shy. I want her to know that this is a safe place. And if you are doing well, you're going to get called out for being successful. You're going to start to get formed into leadership. You're going to start to see that you have some gifts and you have some abilities, and you should take pride in them. That is far more important to me than that 35 or 65-degree angle on your thumb.
Great. I would definitely, I think I would enjoy your class just from talking about your teaching style. You actually remind me a lot of my instructor, so that's kind of cool. So I'm reading on here too, you've authored or co-authored more than 20 martial arts books. What led to that first book? What made you get interested in writing? And just, if you want to talk about a few of the books, and I'll definitely put a link to your Amazon page here with all your books on it also.
Yeah. My seventh grade teacher, Margaret Vaughter, was extraordinarily formative in my sense of self and capabilities. And she grew up in South Dakota and was rife with North Dakota jokes because, that's what you do. But she sent me to a remedial English class, and I did not like that. I got out of that as fast as possible. And I have, to this day, a problem with the written word. I grew up in a rural part of Washington. There's, at that time, there's no understanding of what somebody may have in regard to a learning. I don't want to use the word, but I mean disability. The written word has never worked well for me. It didn't in the seventh grade. It didn't in high school. It didn't in college. It didn't in the business world. It has always been now I can read very fast. It's nothing for me to crush a book in an evening. And I learned how to do that from Teddy Roosevelt, actually. He has a little thing on how to read fast. So it's like, well, okay, I like Teddy Roosevelt. I'll do what he says. But the thing of it is that sort of beat down over the course of all of those institutions will make you not want to put words on paper or on a computer or whatever they are. And I've got stories at every one of those phases about how brutal it was. And it was an absolute gut punch to the ego every time I had to do a paper. And I had to find workarounds. I found a woman at university that would type my papers, and for 2.5 times the amount of what everybody else paid for a paper, she would edit and correct my papers. Done. So what I did is I went and got a job at the local tire store to pay to get my papers written in a correct manner so that I could get a good grade, because my ideas were good, but the words were bad. So that we jump cut now to Lawrence Kane and I standing in the dojo and him going, you should write this stuff down. People don't know this. I'm like, they know it. Yeah. I don't think so. So we go through that. And of course, I'm going through my deflecting aversion. And he finally just said, hey, I came clean. I said, this is the story. And he's like, no, not a problem. We'll do it together. Okay, well, there you go. So 13, 14 years later, here we are. And it's funny that you should bring it up because we just dropped yesterday a Spanish version of the Musashi Field Manual. Wow. I think we're at 24 books now. And then cool. I've done a couple on sort of outside the sphere of our joint work, and he's done a few too. So between the two of us, it might be getting close to 30 books.
Very cool. That's something I've always thought about doing. I love creative writing. I've just never had the patience to sit down and do it. One of these days, maybe I will, but it was nothing for me to write a 150-page story in creative writing class in high school and college, but to actually take the time to sit down and write a book, I'm too busy with other stuff.
Well, there's a process that happens with this writing. And it's sort of like, hey, really, I'm enthusiastic. This is awesome. What a great idea. Let's start putting pen to paper or whatever version you do that. This is getting, and now it's turning into work, and this is getting better. This is a bunch of crap. This is horrible. I'm never going to finish this. This is terrible. Wait a minute. No, this isn't half bad. Hey, it's starting to look pretty good. hey, that editing process isn't as hard as I thought. Okay, great, we published it. So you go through that. And the funny thing is that Lawrence and I often joke about it. Lawrence being, co-author of many of these books with me, that we make a complete personality between the two of us, because I'm very my world swirls in icons and symbology, and that's how I see the world, and time doesn't mean a lot to me, and Lawrence is the opposite of that. So together we come together and make like I jokingly say, a full personality. And that process that I described, we very how can I say this? There are moments where one of us is going, this is crap, and the other guy's going, no, it's not, it's awesome. and then a week later flip the roles. So that's how it works. And we are a point now to where we actually joke about it. You're actually in the stage of, this is not working, this is horrible, and you're able to step outside it emotionally and look at it and go, oh yeah, that's about the time that would happen.
Okay.
So
I have to ask this, because this is the reason I actually found you and decided to ask you to be a guest on the show. How did you become involved in the documentary Looking for Mr. Miyagi?
Oh, he just called me.
Really?
He just called me.
Okay.
Yeah, just called me up, said, hey, and he's like, hey, this is David Lee Band. You look like kind of, it's like, yeah, I'll fly down to Denver. We'll do that. So
Nice.
that was that. Yeah. And I've got a friend down there, lives just outside of Denver, Mark Animal McYoung, and it's like, well, this is a chance to go see Mark, and let's do that. So that's how it all came together. And David is Liban is just a super guy, really pleasant, creative, smart, affable, pleasant to be around. It was a delight. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. I have a request in with him to hopefully get him on the show too. So we'll see. It's a great. If anyone hasn't seen it, I literally I watched it yesterday, and then sent you an email about doing the podcast, and we're doing it the next day. So it's kind of a quick turnaround there. Probably one of my fastest interviews there. I take that back. My second fastest. I had one guy where I emailed him, and he's like, "What about now?" I'm like, "Okay." So yeah.
Dang, I'm number 2 again.
there we go. We should have done it last night. Dang it. No.
Yeah.
But no, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's a phenomenal documentary. I highly recommend it. So, and then before I get into the final few questions that we kind of do for fun and stuff, I got to ask, I was looking through your site, and it looks like you actually host a couple podcasts too. You want to give a little plug to your podcast?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Martial Arts in Life is a monologue. It usually has to do with a take, a version, a viewpoint on an aspect of martial arts as a whole, because it's martial arts and life. Sometimes we talk more about life and behavior with a tendril to martial arts, and sometimes it's martial arts with a tendril out to life behaviors. Then, of course, over on the Patreon site at Patreon, Kris Wilder, that is the After Hours, and that is exclusive for Patreon supporters. It sometimes is a little more blunt, a little direct. It's for the people with the big kid pants, I guess. And then of course there's other attributes within Patreon. There's different levels. You can get different things, everything from video instruction to inside looks at some of the new projects. Like one of the new projects I'm working on right now, Brian, is I'm working on San Chin. It's tentatively called San Chin, the Three Fires. But there's been a lot of questions about San Chin, and I did a book on it, and I did a DVD on it through YMAA. And those deal with the mechanics of it. But what about the physiological aspects of it? I got into the Wim Hof method about 7 or 8 years ago, I suppose.
Okay.
Had an opportunity to train with him. Now, I don't want to make that sound like I was one-on-one with him. I was in a room with him, with 200 of his closest friends.
Okay.
But, I did get a chance to have a kind of a little private conversation with him because I like to show up early. And he was just walking around in his shorts. And I'm like, Mr. Hoff? He's like, yeah. It's like, oh. So, but that has led to an adventure in breathing and the physiological aspects of it. And I know we started talking about, the Martial Arts in Life podcast and the Patreon, But one of the things that happens in the Patreon is you get peeks into these projects. And so I kind of wanted to tease this out a little bit to
Okay.
let you know what I'm doing, because I'm still in that excited phase about this. But what happens to the question becomes not only in Sanshin, the physiological aspects of it, it's like my hand is here, my arm is here, I tighten this muscle, I do that. But what's happening to your parasympathetic nervous system? What's happening to your sympathetic nervous system? What's happening to your heart rate, your O2 levels? All of those things. I'm measuring heart rate, O2 levels, gamma, delta, beta, theta, brain waves. It's what happens to your brain when you're at rest. What happens to your brainwave when you're engaged in a thought process like doing math? How does that compare to Sanshin when you're doing it? And there's been some interesting information that has come forward in regard to the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And then on top of that, the different brain waves. There have been some results that I did not anticipate. And also the oxygen levels when you're doing these various different stages. So yeah, I've got brain waves monitored in all three aspects of this, oxygen levels, engagement of the nervous systems, and I'm talking with a doctor that's helping me do some peer review on this. That's also a martial artist. So that's my big flame right now. I'm really buried into that because I think that Sanshin Kata is done incorrectly
Really?
on many levels.
Okay.
And I think I'm proving it. So with science, we've heard of science.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Interesting. I actually can't wait to start listening to your podcast, and I know I'm definitely going to be ordering some of your books because you got some good ones out there. So,
thanks.
A few questions to wrap things up. So let's say an acquaintance approaches you, they contact you, and they say, "Hey, I'm thinking of getting involved in martial arts." What tips do you give them? What to look for in a school, what to look for in an instructor, and maybe what to avoid in an instructor?
Well, it's my advice is always the same, and it's very simple, and it's changed. Mm-hmm. It used to be, what do you want to do? Do you want to, and you start this long litany of, well, do you want to train for art? Do you want to train for this? Do you want to do that? What are you looking for? And all this kind of stuff, and it turns into this buffet of a menu of, and it's like, okay, well, now that we've figured out all of those things and we've built you a rainbow colored unicorn, go find that rainbow colored unicorn. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to simply go to the school, the martial arts school that is the closest to you, because that's the one you're going to train in. You're going to go to.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I'm a maniac. I'm a guy that, back in the day when I was doing Ed Parker's Kempo, I would drive a long distance, man, and and back. I mean, I was driving through I was going to 3, going through 2, and landing in a third town to get to the training, and then reversing that in the evenings. But I'm a maniac. I'm different in that way. Most people go to, I say, go to the school that's closest to you, because you're going to do it. Now, if it's a Taekwondo school, that's what you're doing. It's Taekwondo. If it's Japanese archery, go do that. It's about immersing yourself in a discipline. It's about subjugating your sense of self to others that have come before you that have experience, tradition, and a viability. So go do that. It doesn't make any difference if you're doing, well, I want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well, there's a judo dojo at the Y. Yeah, but I want to go do the judo. They got ground game too. It's just different, but go do it. But I want to do, then, you should stop, because that unicorn, that rainbow colored unicorn that you're looking for, doesn't exist. You should stop. And if it did exist, you wouldn't make the distance to do it over time to be successful. And then you'd just be standing there going, well, yeah, it didn't work out. Well, of course it didn't work out. You set yourself up for failure. Think of it this way. If I told you, Brian, that I was going to relocate to Texas A&M to go to school, one of your kids comes up and says, Dad, I want to go to Texas A&M. And you're like, yeah, but we got University of North Dakota right here. Yeah, but Texas A&M, okay, and you talk, and it's like, okay, I guess A&M is going to be the deal. And you wouldn't think too much of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if your child came into you and said, I'm going to move to China to go study Kung Fu, you're like, whoa, time out. We got to talk this out. What?
See, I'm the bad guy to bring that analogy to, because in 1996 I packed up and moved to California to learn American Kempo. So
yeah.
I'm that guy. Well,
who'd you train with out there?
So initially, the whole goal was to train with Jeff Speakman, and then by the time I got there, he had moved his school. So I mostly trained with some of his students, former students, and Jim Diggs and his wife Deanne. As Jim has since passed away, did some training with Larry Tatum, did some training with Jeff Speakman, but the Diggs were my primary instructors when I was out there. So
Mr. Tatum and I have become acquaintances, and we wind up having conversations about other things than martial arts. Coffee. I called him up one day. I said, "Hey, man, I'm facing a big business choice. This is what I'm thinking about doing." And he said, "Don't do that. Do this. Do this. Do this." And I went, "Okay." And I took his business advice, and I'm doing exactly what he told me to do, and it's coming together.
Nice.
So I really have a big affinity in my heart for Mr. Tatum. He's a cool dude.
You'll have to listen. His episode will be out in about 2 weeks with my interview with him. So you'll enjoy that one, I think.
Well, Squid Pro Row, Mr. Powers. I will have to send you the link to my Larry Tatum interview.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, we'll have to trade. That'll be fun.
Yeah, but isn't he just he's a good dude. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I've chatted with him many times over the years. I first met him in '95 at the Internationals.
Yeah.
And yeah, just super nice guy.
Yeah, nothing to prove. Happy to talk with you. You can take his advice or not. Makes no never mind. Do as you please.
Exactly.
Until you cross the line, then it's a different deal. But back to that advice is just go to the school that's closest to you. If you're starting, that's what you want to do. Now, if you're an advanced practitioner, that's a different deal.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a different decision tree involved in that. So like I'd have people come into my dojo and they're like, "Hey, can I train with you?" It's like, "Yeah, And you come to find out that they've got some background. It's like, "Hey man, wear your belt." It's like, "Well, but I don't want." It's like, you earned it, you wear it. I'm not going to insult your instructor, and I'm not going to degrade what you earned. Put that belt on. Yeah, but you guys don't have a purple belt. We do now.
Nice.
Put it on. Yeah, because think of it this way. If you went and you got your undergraduate degree at Stanford, and then you went to go get your master's degree at MIT, MIT is not going to stand there sniffing your degree going, we'd really like you to take English 101 here. They're not going to do that. And I think it's ridiculous in the martial arts to do that as well. Now, if somebody wants to come in and they say, "Well, I was doing judo and I want to do karate," yeah, okay, that's cool. I get that, because there's a gap there. But if you're involved in a percussive art and you're coming in, it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, hey,
good way to look at it.
Yeah. I want to wear my belt to the side because that's what we did in Kempo. It's like, I understand what you're doing there, but just go ahead and keep that purple belt on and go ahead and move the knot to the front. It's okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So again, a little more flexibility than there would have been in the past.
Okay. You talked a little bit about this on the documentary, so I'm just kind of curious on this one, but what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC?
Well, I don't watch it,
Okay.
but I would. I watched the early ones because that was just a circus freak show.
Yes.
And I enjoyed that. Now, I've watched a couple of these. I'll watch boxing before I'll watch MMA.
Okay.
But that's just a personal choice. It's not a thing where I've got some sort of big hang up about the UFC. Boy, you can't take anything away from those guys. Those are some high level, scary athletes.
Yes.
And, but when you look at those guys, or you look at you take a UFC fighter or a boxer in their prime, you and I are going to lose to them, and we're going to lose so fast we won't even know what happened. It's a matter of fact. And to walk around and go, well, it's like asking David Carradine, well, how would you have fared in a fight with Bruce Lee? Well, it's like, no, don't even entertain that idea, because first off, David, you're high.
Yeah.
Number two, you're high. Number three, you got no real skills. Okay, so shut up and quit reading your own press releases. Okay, and that's how I feel about that. I mean, those guys, are at a high level. They understand martial arts at a really high level. And if you think about it, they're kind of bringing it back around. If you look at jiu-jitsu, and the way I understand its origin was, you lost your samurai, you lost your weapons on the battlefield. This guy's got to go on the ground so somebody else can stab him and you can run away. Okay, and that's sort of a Cliff Note version of it, but you get the picture. That's why, like, the judo grip used to be at the armpits when it first started, because that was like grabbing the breastplate. And these guys are bringing the martial arts back around again. You're not seeing an attempt to kick an incoming punch out of the way.
Right.
It's just that's not realistic. It doesn't exist. But I can kick you in the thigh and keep that punch away from me. So the UFC and all of those kinds of things, I don't watch them, and it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it. It's just not my groove,
Okay.
But wow, some of those guys are something else. I enjoy boxing. I'll watch boxing. I'll watch boxers I don't even know, because I just want to know so much about the hand speed and I love it. That's my jam, as the kids would say.
Okay.
As opposed to UFC. I have nothing against the UFC, and I have great respect for everybody that's involved with it. But it's like a thing. It's like, I don't particularly care for Brussels sprouts, so I'm not eating Brussels sprouts,
There you
and
go.
I'm not gonna watch UFC because I don't particularly care for it. That's it,
It's a great
But
answer.
but yeah, major props to everybody that's doing it. I think it's very cool.
Okay. So if you had to put one martial artist on the top of your list that you admire throughout your life, whether it's someone you've actually met and trained with, or, like you mentioned, Bruce Lee or someone like that, who would you put on the top of that list?
Well, that comes to that question of who's the greatest athlete of all time. Well, I think Dan Gable was up there,
Yeah.
But if I throw Dan Gable on a court with Michael Jordan, they don't compare.
Right.
And Michael Jordan on a mat with Dan Gable, it's fish out of water. So, when you start looking at that, who do you consider to be, the greatest martial artist? Well, are you talking about and it starts to turn into one of those kinds of things.
Right.
And so I look at those influential martial artists the same way I look at all of my instructors. I don't really have one teacher that was the most influential. I have a series of martial arts instructors who gave me a sequential set of gifts that was their treasure. This is the thing that I'm very, very good at. Come get some. Let me share this with you. So I can't point to one person. I can point to many. And because they all give something. Like, if I looked at Bruce Lee, I would say Bruce Lee inspired me as a young child to want to be fast and effective. I thought that was pretty cool. But then I look at Chuck Norris, and it was like, hey, that's a white dude. I am too. I can do this too. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That was a real thing with Chuck Norris. It's like, hey, I don't have to be Asian to be good at this.
Yep.
Then I, can go down here and I can look at these people that, some of my Taekwondo instructors. It was, keep your values in life in order. Don't let anything don't over rotate. Don't let things over skew. Be the middle road. Do the things that need to be done in your life, and do the things that you want to do in your life. And then I can look at my judo instructor, Kenji Yamada, and that is a man who put one foot in front of the other every day. I'll tell you a quick story about him.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the locker room after he had died, and I was up there with one of the guys, Bo, and Bo had trained with him since he was 5 years old. And so we're up there in the locker room, and I pointed to Sensei's gi, and it's hanging on a peg, and there's his red and white belt, his Akashiro. And I said, look at that, Bo. Now Yamada had been dead for probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. I said, look at that. And I pointed to his gi and to his belt, and Bo looked at it and he goes, yeah, he was coming back. There was no end to him until there was an end. Yeah. He hung his gi up and his belt up as if he was coming back tomorrow. He did not know when his last day was. And if you think about that, you don't know when the last day was that you played with your best childhood friend. You don't know when your last day was when your child ran up to you with their arms out saying, pick me up. You never know when those days are. And so you have to keep stepping forward. I learned that from my judo instructor. And so, I can go through and I can look at these things. And so I'm not inspired by people on film anymore as I was as a child, whether it was Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris. I'm more inspired by the people that I can get in their field and kind of feel with them and be with them and sort of see what's going on and see how they handle themselves and what is it that they have to teach. They don't have everything, but they got something, and I want to know what that is, and I'm open to it. Show me something really cool, and they have, So I wish I could answer that question and just go, oh yeah, that was so and so.
No, that's a great answer, actually. I love that answer. That's one of the reasons I like. I've never gotten the same answer, I don't think, from anybody with that. So I really like that a lot. And same with this next one. I don't think I've ever had the same answer. So throughout your years of martial arts, is there one philosophy you've learned that really stands out for you? I promise the last few questions will be much easier.
No, that's fine. Well, I think the thing that you want to do is you want to take your martial arts into you and integrate it in such a way that no one knows. I don't want to go to a social event and stand in the corner of the room with my club soda, giving everybody the sensei eyes. What are you doing over there? It's like, no, and it's like, don't do that. The things that you learn should be integrated into yourself, not the other way around. Don't append what you believe to be some sort of affectious behavior to yourself and lose yourself in that deception. Go ahead and be who you are, but take the lessons and take the movements and take that and bring it into yourself and allow it to become part of who you are to a point to where it just disappears inside you and you can be easy to be with. Because that person standing there, with their shoulders back and the sensei eyes, it's like, well, that's there's an old joke that says, you're at a party, do you know who the pilot is at the party? And the answer is, just give them time, they'll tell you. It should not come up. It should not come up. What do you do for a living? I say, I write books. I don't say, oh, I'm a martial arts teacher. Mm-hmm. That's not really very accessible. What do you write books about? Self-improvement, body mechanics, stuff like that. Yeah. I try to just be easy to be with, be gentle. Don't be, bringing your agenda. Enjoy people, enjoy yourself. Don't have some crazy mixed up space zombie idea of, I have to adhere to these 21 precepts that Funakoshi wrote or whatever it might be. No, those are guidelines. Those are things to help you be a better version of yourself, not be a version of who they think you should be. That's the deal, I think, is let the art bake into you and become part of who you are, not the other way around.
Another great answer. I like it. All right. So the last few fun ones, and you can't pick one of your own. Favorite martial arts book?
I would have to say I have two. Okay. Is that okay?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. The Way and the Power by Loverit is very interesting.
Okay.
It is about samurai strategery. It's about samurai strategy. So it's like, something no heiho. It might be, mizo no heiho. It's short, little, quick things. It's like, this is called the pillow technique. It's to hold the other person's head down with a pillow. And, I think it's quite good. The Way and the Power by Loverit. And that's tactical in its nature. I think it is called The Way of the Martial Artist. I read it so many years ago, and I have a copy of it, and it's blown out. The pages fall out of it and stuff. And it's by an Aikidoka. His name will come to me in a moment.
Okay.
But what he did is he went and took his martial arts training to recruits in the Army, teaching them a little bit about meditation, a little bit about, controlling the body and movements and all of this kind of stuff. And just a super book. In fact, I've over the course of the years, I've had conversations with people. It's like, yeah, I really like this book. And they'll send me a photo of their dog-eared copy of it.
Nice.
It's like, absolutely, yeah. Heckler. It's by Heckler.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it might be in its third publication. I tried to get him on my podcast, and to say he blew me off is not really fair. He just said, I got other things I'm doing. Thanks so much.
Right.
So to say he blew me off is not really true. He's got other things he's doing, and that's fine, and I get it. But it would have been a great conversation. But those are the two books. I think it's Seeking the Martial Way. The book I'm recommending, and the one that I enjoy, is In Search of the Warrior Spirit. And it's on its fourth edition, and it's called Teaching Awareness Disciplines to the Green Berets. And it's by Richard Strozzi Heckler.
Okay.
It is a transformational book. It was for me. When I discovered it, I was ready for it, and I read it, and it changed a lot of things. So those are the two books that I like. I like In Search of the Warrior Spirit, and by Heckler, and the other one by Loverit, which was The Way and the Power.
Okay, perfect. Now this one, you grew up in the 70s and 80s, so you may have an answer for this one, you may not, but do you have a favorite martial arts video game?
No.
Okay. It's about 50-50. A lot of my guests, I started asking that recently because a lot more people started bringing it up anyway. So I'm like, I'll just throw it in there. But no worries. All right, last two questions. Favorite martial arts TV show and favorite martial arts movie?
Well, my favorite martial arts TV show, since there's really only two to choose from, I was an absolute kung fu freak.
Okay.
I had to see that show. That came on, I don't know what it was, Saturday nights or whatever it was. It didn't make any difference when it was. I was there. I had to see it. And the thing that I liked most about it was I liked the flashback scenes with Master Po.
To the temple.
That was the stuff that ignited me the most. I wasn't too much for the, walking into town seeking water, and we got ourselves a Chinese man here. And, that was okay. I was living for the flashbacks. And a funny story about that is we were doing movie night at the dojo, and we played the original pilot. And for those that aren't familiar with the original pilot, that set up Kwai Chang Caine killing the Prince of China, whatever he was, and running to America to try to find his father and escape, the bounty hunters that were coming after him. And a Shaolin bounty hunter comes after him, and they get in a fight in the railway, and, all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the scene ends with, the thing ends with a scene of the Chinese lighting some of the railroad's equipment on fire, and Kwai Chang kind of just standing there helping out a little bit. And one of the parents, Marty, who's a super smart guy, he teaches at the University of Washington, he said to me, that's inconsistent with who this guy has presented himself in the entire show. The real Kwai Chang Caine would not engage in that. I'm like, way to ruin it, Marty. You're exactly right. But I liked Kung Fu because I so appreciated those flashback scenes.
Okay.
Those were the juice for me. Those were the middle of the Oreo cookie. That's what I was looking for. Favorite movie, The Legend of Ricky is pretty good.
Okay.
That is just insanely over the top. And I did like Kung Pao
That's
because
a
it's
great
just
movie.
such a spoof. Yeah, it's such a spoofy, stupid. Look at that. He punched a perfect circle through him. Who does that? How do you do that? You know, I don't have really a favorite. I kind of enjoy them for what they are. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, Enter the Dragon. That's it. It's like, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was okay. I get it. But, I've seen it 23 times. I don't need to see it the 24th. But I don't really have a favorite martial because it's not my genre of movie that I would really gravitate towards anyway. I'm not a big action movie kind of guy. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I'm not much for action movies. I've never seen any of the Rambos. I've never seen any of the Fast and the Furious. It's not my thing. I'm not denigrating it or anything. It's just my preference.
No, that's fine. It's everyone has their own opinion. So I have to ask you though, since you mentioned Kung Fu, did you ever watch the sequel from the early 90s, The Legend Continues?
No.
Okay.
No. It's like I was talking about Oreos, and it's like my old college roommate said. They came out with double stuff Oreos when we were in college, and I said, "Hey, swag, check it out, man! They got double stuff Oreos." And he just like crinkled up his nose, and he goes, "You don't screw with Oreos. They're perfect. Leave them alone." And then he paused, and he goes, "And while you're at it, don't mess with Orange Crush either." Yeah, it's like Orange Crush and Oreos are fine. Leave them alone. Kung Fu was fine. Leave it alone. I just felt like it was a bunch of Hollywood suits trying to squeeze money out of an existing platform that, it's like, no, don't do that.
There you go.
And they're doing the same thing. They're redoing the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
The Wonder Years, leave it alone. It was great.
I'll probably watch it just because my daughter wants to watch it. So I'll probably at least give it one episode and we'll see. But
yeah, and you know what? It might turn out to be one of those things that's like, I love British humor, and I watched the original Office, and then I heard they were going to do an Office in the States, and it's like, no, and it was like, I guess you did. So my original position is usually leave it alone, let it be what it is, don't mess with it, because generally the version that comes up later, it's like, let me ask you this, if you're flipping around on the TV set and you flip through and the Wild Wild West is on, you're probably going to hold on it for a little bit and go, yeah. Oh, you're doing the same thing and the movie comes on. Are you going to even give it 2 hot seconds? No,
probably not.
No. So generally, I think things should be left to what they are, but there are those exceptions. But no, I didn't ever see it.
Okay, cool. Well, Kris, I just want to thank you. This has been so much fun. I enjoyed learning so much more about you, and I will definitely post links to your podcast, your books, and your school website, and anything else. But I truly appreciate the time, and I've really enjoyed this.
Well, you've been a fantastic host.
Your
training back in the days of a 5,000 watt radio station are coming through. Absolutely. And, for those of you who are listening to the podcast, Brian and I both have backgrounds in radio, and we were lamenting the loss of radio as we once knew it. And, those things, times change and it moves on. And I think, honestly, the diversification of podcasts and so forth have blown right past every program director in the world, and now it's just game on.
Agreed.
And we've got some phenomenal stuff out there. Dan Carlin would not exist on radio. Joe Rogan would not exist on radio. There's so many different pieces that would never fit. So things have changed, and we had a chance to kind of go back, and of course we all know you're not supposed to say booger on the air because that'll get you fired, just like Dr. Johnny Fever. No.
That's probably a good way to end it. That's good.
Yeah,
Johnny Fever.
yeah.
There you go.
Hey, thanks so much for reaching out, Brian. This has been phenomenal. But again, my friend, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.